Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back.
So, we were talking about how so many people in the world, the vast majority of people in the world, do not understand that this is not the way things should be.
Because they don't know any other way. They've been groomed since they were very, very small, and the parents, and on and on and on, up through the ages, to believe a certain way of doing things is the only and most important and the best way of doing things.
And there's some things that obviously come to mind right away when we say, this is not the way things should be. And there's other things that might not be so obvious. So, my question to you is, fish that were born in a fishbowl, in an aquarium, do they even know that they're not swimming in the ocean? Do they even have a concept of an ocean? Or do they think this is all there is?
It's a really, really good question, and it's what we can ask ourselves to try to get a bigger and better understanding of what are we doing here?
Exactly. To the fish that this is all they've ever known. Maybe it's a big, huge deal if some new ornament gets put in there. It's like, oh my God, the world has changed. Maybe there's one of those little treasure chests that opens and closes that they put in there. And that is a huge event.
Yes.
That's earth shaking. It's just because, do they know any better? When we see like mice or hamsters or gerbils or rats on the wheel and they're running, they're never getting anywhere. Do they understand it, but they still keep running?
Because they have this instinct that they're supposed to be going somewhere, but their instincts have been channeled to something else.
When we look out at the world, what do we see? What do we really see here? Are these people really going anywhere? Are we ever really achieving anything when we look at the system that we are in? What are we really achieving in our lives and perhaps life after life?
What are they achieving, or has their lives just been channeled in the direction that somebody else wants them to go?
Exactly. When you look at things too, because people can be conditioned. How many of you remember this smiling face? Do you remember Patty Hearst and her kidnapping? She was kidnapped by the Symbionese Liberation Army. This was back in 1974. And they basically traumatized her. They brainwashed and conditioned her. And they actually got it to be so bad that she was seen in photos armed, apparently helping them to commit robbery. Stockholm syndrome. This is conditioning that can totally change a person's mindset. And we had talked about that movie, Dark World. Was it Dark World? Dark World. Right?
I don't know. I forgot.
Yeah, it was Dark World, and it was a really good flick, albeit kind of cheesy nowadays standards. But it was all about human conditioning being done by some non-humans. Talk about inhumane and just ghastly. Do you know people were refusing to believe the rumors of what was happening in World War II, not thinking that it could really be happening, that mass amounts of people were being eradicated off the face of the planet. It just boggled the mind. We've heard tales that when the conquistadors came, the indigenous people couldn't see the ships because they couldn't conceive of it.
Right. They just couldn't. The equipment wasn't there for them to actually see it.
And when we talk about atrocities, we actually had camps here in the United States in World War II as well. And this is some of the relocation areas where people that were of Japanese ethnicity were being put in these camps. So a lot of people maybe don't know about that side of history. or the fact that German scientists were recruited by the U.S., actively recruited, and actually Operation Paperclip, as it says, the Nazis didn't really lose. This says they moved to America, and we should put in before that Antarctica, as well as South America, because they did. Werner von Braun, NASA administrator, Arthur Rudolph, NASA scientist, and Sidney Gottlieb, CIA, TSS, MK Ultra. So this is some of the history that a lot of people are not aware of. From 45 to 55, Operation Paperclip granted nearly 1,000 German scientists American citizenship. Many have been longtime members of the Nazi Party and the Gestapo, committing these atrocities that we see at the camps. They conducted experiments on humans at these camps and committed other war crimes. They were all forgiven, given big assets, big salaries, nice houses, top of everything. The scientists ended up in U.S. military-industrial complex, worked with the CIA, NSA, NASA, and more. Again, this goes back to the fish in the fishbowl, because a lot of people wouldn't be able to even conceive of that, or the technology that they possessed. It's declassified. They had flying saucers. That's just declassified. And then, of course, we saw Admiral Byrd get his butt kicked, kicked. And that was Operation High Jump, going down to check out the advances that they had made down in Antarctica, and had to come limping back. And shortly thereafter, we had the Battle of Los Angeles and UFOs over DC. Who were in those UFOs, really? Was it still some of the NAZIs? This is a real thing, and it's right there. But then again, we're automatically being conditioned all the time to trust certain entities, especially the alphabet soups, which, of course, many people have a strong distrust of. Well, we just have to look at some of the things that have gone on over time, and some of the things that are going on right now. Was that really a mosquito that just bit you? Was it? Was it? Awful lifelike insects that are being created.
Yep.
As we know, DARPA creates amazing things. As you look at this, 10 millimeters.
Wow.
So think about that. Was that a beetle that just walked across the floor?
Right.
Was it?
Exactly.
And then how about that little pinch that you just felt? And even smaller than that, as we see the type of technology that is coming out, so small that, all it takes is a breath, a single breath. We've seen GMO mosquitoes. What's really going on with this? There's a lot of things going on, but again, from the perspective of those inside the fishbowl, it might look entirely different than someone that is outside of the fishbowl and has experienced life outside of it. And where is the future really heading here? Well, it's a pretty scary looking sci-fi future, with the power structures that be wanting to create super soldiers and all sorts of unmanned drones and critters. There's actually a sci-fi series out, a remake of The War of the Worlds, that has DARPA dogs, or they looks like DARPA dogs in it. And, how are these new vectors being delivered? We talked so much about the NANO technology that's there, that can be triggered by certain frequencies, certain wavelengths. You could mask up all you want. It's something that eventually is going to end up inside our bodies, as we see some things that have been found. Pretty gross stuff.
Ew. Don't look, guys. Oh my gosh. And then we have this creature here. It makes you wonder, what is it doing? It looks like it's injecting something into a cell.
How small can they go? We don't really know. That's the bottom line. because we're talking about something that's beyond just this particular apparent time frame that we're in. How many of you have heard of the plagues of Justinian? Well, really, if you look deep, you'll see that there's a lot of interesting coincidences when it comes to plagues, things from the sky. And there again, remember, oh, let's see here. No, that's the yucky stuff. That. How long has that been going on? Is it just a modern occurrence? Well, there's a lot of interesting sightings that have gone on in unusual things in the sky, and then all of a sudden there's breakouts of plagues. And this is Gods in Eden blogspot. William Bramley did a good book, The Gods of Eden. Very, very quick read. It's probably 230 pages or so, but very interesting. Very interesting. Between 540 AD, 592 AD, when Justinian was carrying out his Christian reforms, a bubonic plague engulfed the East Roman Empire and spread to Europe. The epidemic began inside Justinian's realm, and so it was named the Justinian's Plague. Justinian's plague was one of the most devastating plagues of history, and many people at that time believed it to be a punishment from God, or the gods, the Elohim. There we go again, plural, plural, plural. In fact, the word plague comes from the Latin word for blow or wound. Plague has been nicknamed God's disease, or the God's disease, a blow or a wound from God. One reason people thought plague to be from God was the frequent appearance of unusual aerial phenomenon in conjunction with outbreaks of the plague. One chronicler of Justinian's plague was the famous historian Gregory of Tours, who documented a number of unusual events from the plague years. Gregory reports that just before Justinian's plague invaded the Auvergne region of France in 567 AD, 3 or 4 brilliant lights appeared around the sun, and the heavens appeared to be on fire. This may have been a natural sundog effect, maybe. However, other unusual celestial phenomena were also seen in the area. Another historian reported a similar event 23 years later in another part of France, Avignon. Strange sights were reported in the sky and ground, and sometimes was as brilliantly illuminated at night as in the day. Shortly thereafter, a disastrous outbreak of the plague occurred there. Gregory reported a sighting in Rome consisting of an immense dragon, which floated through the sky and down to the sea, followed by a severe outbreak of the plague immediately thereafter. Such reports chillingly suggest the unthinkable that Justinian's plague was caused by biological warfare agents spread by, he calls them custodians. And that's interesting because, he calls them the custodians. He does reference the Anunnaki and EGG and all that, and UFOs, and he does get into the Greys and talks about, all this as well. But he just uses a term called the custodians because they're the ones that are really operating this reality. And there's so many depictions of them all throughout the ages. This is something that's beyond Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens is basically a species that has been manufactured for these times as they keep trying new, different hominid species. Just again, look to the family tree and look at all these ones that end. They just end. Something else comes. They do a very good job of mimicking nature and trying to make things look natural, but they're very heavily artificially flavored. Medieval UFO encounters, 700 plus years of ancient alien sightings, extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, and there will be those that just have to say it's demons and angels.
Yeah.
But that's just, again, that's like calling every single fish a dolphin.
Yep.
Which it's not, and they're not really even fish.
Right.
It just is not descriptive enough in identifying a particular type of being. Again, we could even get into dogs, and if you called every dog a poodle,
Yep.
Well, Zeke doesn't look like a poodle.
No.
Sassy doesn't look like a poodle. It's just not descriptive enough. Sure, there are aliens. Sure, there are demons. There's all of the above. But we see there's so many different UFO reports. 1271 over in Japan, 1290 in Yorkshire, England, 1431. Very, very interesting. 1431, the entire population of the village of Angkor Wat mysteriously vanished. Large airships seen in the area. Was that a rapture event?
I don't know.
Curious. William of Newburgh's Chronicle in Yorkshire, England contains the description: the abbot and the monks were at a meal when a flat, round, shining, silvery object flew over the abbey and caused the utmost terror. It was the minions of Satan himself. In a way, yeah. Yeah. That's again where we get to see how these things have happened forever. 1453, strange lights circling over Constantinople in the night before the Turks conquered it. Some of the lights flew straight up at high speed and then split into many smaller lights. How many times have we seen that in these days? March 17th, 1458, 5 stars appear over Japan. They circled the moon, changed colors 3 times, and then disappeared. The citizens of Kyoto, Japan were so distressed by this event they ran and hid, expecting the arrival of horrible disasters. Conditioning, because when you see these things, it usually means bad things are coming.
It sure does.
Now, it goes on and on. You have a large object making it sound like a wheel flies out of Mount Kasuga in 1468. None of the citizens had seen anything like it before. Ezekiel's wheel, perhaps. I mean, and there again, we need to look from all angles, all different societies and civilizations and histories. And then we see these repeating patterns. In November 1st, 1461, French Duke of Bourgogne wrote in his memoirs that an object appeared in the sky over France on a night of November 1st, 1461. It was as long and wide as half a moon. It hung stationary for about a quarter of an hour, clearly visible, then suddenly e-spiraled, twisted, and turned like a spring and rose into the heavens. We can't blame that necessarily on Russian technology or Chinese technology, can we? In 1461? No, I don't think so. A large comet, 1479, flying over Arabia with numerous windows on it. Yeah, you always see windows in comets, don't you?
That's so common.
1492, a personal log of Christopher Columbus during his famous voyage. When he's going to discover those continents.
Yes.
With 100 million people that are apparently lost because they didn't know that they were there.
They never knew that they were there ever.
Yeah, this is again the revisionist history. So Saturday the 15th of September, 1492, and on this night, at the beginning of it, they saw fall from the sky a marvelous branch of fire into the sea at a distance of 4 or 5 leagues from them. So, falling star, I'm sure they've seen a falling star before. Not necessarily a branch of fire. But then again, we've been talking and they've let us know that, there's bases under the ocean as well. And so it goes on and on, guys. And there's woodcuts and depictions and, 200 large cylinders, globes, and spinning discs flew over the skies of Nuremberg, Germany. People also reported seeing red, black, and orange globes, as well as smoking spheres coming out of the cylinders in the sky. That was April 4th, 1561. That was a famous one. It goes on and on and on. Was this Kylo Ren's ship or Darth Vader's? Yeah. I mean, that's closer to our reality, and we've seen so many things by the International Space Station. It's not all swamp gas from Uranus. That's for sure. The Earth has been watched for a very, very long time. And the only problem is that most people don't realize they're in a fishbowl. They don't understand. They've been in a fishbowl the whole time. What would a 5D Earth look like? Well, think about our society. It's all about competition. Competition, competition, competition. Do you think we'll have currency in a 5th density Earth? Do you think it's going to be run by Bitcoin,
Right.
cryptocurrency?
Mm-hmm.
What if we didn't have competition? Would we know how to actually make a world built instead of on competition and seeing who's the fastest, strongest, the best at this, the best at that? Instead of, climbing the corporate ladder that leads to nowhere, just like that rat on the wheel, you accumulate things, then you die, and then you come back and do it all over again.
Yep. I just think it's really, really sad, because if people were to get other people around them, say if you were really, really good at something and you took people closest to you and taught them how to be just as good as you, if not better, that's how it should work.
Well, how about a world based on cooperation? What would that look like? Can we even conceive of it? Until we could get enough people, until we could get to a critical mass where people are at least starting to think about this. Think back, and I know so many people are running on that wheel, corporate wheel or non-corporate, that they don't even realize they're on the wheel. When you get time to finally take a vacation, for instance, get away from things, maybe get out in nature, or maybe a staycation, but just unplugging. When you don't have to get up at a certain time to meet some certain obligation because we're all in this debt, this Babylonian money matrix debt cycle that truly keeps us all in indenturement. It really is a feudal society still operating. What would it look like if your day was entirely up to you? What would that look like? Maybe do a little exercise and write down what would be 10 things that I would like to do and go after on a daily basis if I was not in any debt, if I didn't have to work, if I didn't have to do all the things that society demands us to do, even if we're retired. So many people still have to supplement their income in some way, shape, or form, or they're relying on the government for their income. What if the government all of a sudden gives you a stipulation? Oh, you want your Social Security? Oh, you want your Medicare, Medicaid? Well, then you're going to have to do something that you don't want to do. Then what are you going to do? But think about, what would I want to pursue if we didn't have this structure around us? What would that look like? I'd love to hear you guys' comments on that. As we head towards a 5D reality that the power structure does not want happening. But the majority of us on this planet in our hearts do. Our higher selves know. But we've been so disconnected from our higher selves through so many things. So many things. And, some of those things are things, again, that most people don't even realize are disconnecting them. Like horrible diets, all the additives, the dyes. We were talking to one person that was happy that they were getting electrolytes in, but they were doing it by taking in something that was loaded with, these dyes and artificial ingredients, which they do hold your vibration down. Recognize, again, that we are in this fishbowl. Or we could look at it like we're, rats in a cage or in a maze. Hurriedly going where? Liberation lies by going within, and that's the path that these amazing gurus and teachers have given us all throughout time. Buddha came to his realization from going within. Yeshua, when he was faced with a critical time period, what did he do? We went and fasted 40 days to get clarity, because part of it is also, and fasting can be just simply fasting from media, as well, shutting everything off. In even us, if we had to for a day or two, it's not going to hurt. Too bad. It's shutting ourselves off from all the external so that we can listen to the internal. Because part of all this, and how we need to constantly, how many of you are constantly grabbing at your phone, like every couple minutes, because it's conditioning, because you might miss an important message. But where we're heading, that important message can come through as an impression. Like we were talking to Cindy's daughter, and she said she hurt her hip, and I immediately knew which hip it was, but I just let it play out. We're going to be like that. We're going to immediately know things. This is part of who we actually usually are. If we didn't have this whole grid in place to keep the vibrations down, our psychic abilities would be growing, and they are growing. And most of you guys out there that are in this family, you're growing by leaps and bounds, and it could be painful at times, the growth. Mm-hmm. But we're heading to where we need to go, which is outside of this matrix. There's no fixing this matrix with a little band-aid. And again, if we're looking to the politicians, for instance, or anybody in the system to save us, then we're missing the point, because we all have to do it ourselves. Recognize each one of us is a cell in the body of this planet. As long as we have the majority of cells acting like a cancer or a virus, we're not going to be able to change it. Mm-hmm. It's in enlightening each individual cell that cell can find its own enlightenment that will start to turn the path and will start to change this planet and everything on it.
Yeah, we have a whole lot of stuff to really sit and think about and go within, go deep within, and understand that all these things have been kept busy on the outside of you to keep you from going within, because that's where you're going to find everything. And it's not an easy thing to do, because they've taught us since we were so small to look outside of ourselves for the things that we want, look outside of ourselves for the toys that we want. No, it's all been backwards. We're supposed to learn to go within, and it's not an easy thing to do, but it's doable.
Yes, mind, body, breath practice is so important. Be it yoga, be it Tai Chi, Qigong, still meditation is great as well. Doing the mantras, all these things are tools that can really change your whole life and your perspective. Mm-hmm. So we want to thank all you guys for your support, being part of the family. Make sure to thumbs up, support the channel. Make sure to share and try to wake up as many people as possible. There's also a link now with all the videos that would take you to our medicinal foods page. So if you want to take care of your body, which is so important in these times, because the body is like an anchor or like a base. And so, depending on the condition of the body, it makes it harder or easier for us to achieve ascension. The healthier you are, the better. And in these times, we need to be giving our bodies the most healthy materials possible and constantly detoxing again. So thank you guys for being part of the family. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.